Good evening, this is Atmospheric Alex here with yet another weather forecast and discussion. I know I did one of these just the other day, but yeah, we still have quite a bit to talk about, especially about this upcoming potential severe weather outbreak for a pretty large portion of Dixie Alley. And then later in the video, we'll be talking about a winter storm risk, possibly for the upper southeast, especially including Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia that might be getting in on the action. Unfortunately, before we go through all that, we have to talk about our excessive rainfall outlook here. Over the next couple of days, we have a large, moderate risk in place. We're talking about some significant flooding rains on Saturday, of all that severe weather down there, all the moisture just getting squeezed out into the Ohio Valley and Mid-South here. But look at that, across northern Mississippi, most of Tennessee, I'm kind of surprised, most of Kentucky as well, going to southern Ohio, and western West Virginia as well, where we will be talking about significant rainfall, and we'll get into that in just a second. Also, areas in the yellow as well need to watch. So how is our fire hose of moisture looking on the European model? You can see it starting Saturday morning. Talk about a lot of moderate to heavy rainfall moving through, and it just continues pumping. This tail down here keeps getting fed more and more moisture, and it just keeps getting squeezed out into the same exact areas. Look at that heavy rain. Gosh, and then severe weather, possible damaging winds on top of that with those storms. We will be talking about a lot of problems, and because of this, the Weather Prediction Center has mentioned potential upgrades to a high risk of flash flooding. Please be very weather aware if you're across those areas, as you will not only see that flooding, but you could also see a lot of downed trees and power lines due to the soft soils from the flooding. GFS model shows roughly the same ordeal here. A lot more widespread nature, goes a lot further north as well. Again, please be aware of this. I cannot stress that enough. And so now we're going to take a look at your total precipitation accumulation from your European model, and we are talking about big time issues here. Look at that in your red colors there. Your reds is 2+ inches. As we move into your dark reds, into your gray colors, that is more upwards of 5 to almost 7 inches of rain. This is going to fall within a 30-hour period, so again, this is going to be a fast-moving, heavy dumping system here of rainfall. One absolute deluge. You can see these localized hotspots here. It will not take much to flood these areas. I've already seen quite a bit of rain, especially eastern Kentucky. It only takes about 1/2 inch to 1 inch to cause flooding, and we could be seeing about, 2, 3, 4 times as that, so get ready. GFS, same idea, little more concentrated going back further west here, across extreme west Tennessee and extreme western Kentucky, Paducah, Mayfield, Kentucky, I'm talking about you all. This model does pump out about 7 inches of rain, again, in a 30-hour period. Rivers, creeks, and streams are going to rise rapidly with this in effect, so if you're in a lower lying area living next to those areas as well, you might want to consider getting out while you still can, just in case it floods over quickly. Your high-res NAM model coming in with the same depiction here. Yeah, really just an all-out nasty scenario here. Again, your severe weather, don't forget, coming through these areas with its 50 to 60+ mile-an-hour wind gusts being a possibility. Now we're quickly moving through this video into part 2, our severe weather breakdown. Here we go. As of now, we are currently seeing a level 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here, an enhanced risk for severe weather as we go into Saturday. And then also in your yellow areas is a 2 out of 5, so areas that should be quite weather aware. Memphis here, Huntsville, Chattanooga. I'm talking even up to Knoxville possibly. Atlanta, Columbus, Gadsden, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Meridian, Hattiesburg, Jackson, New Orleans, Gulfport, Pensacola, Mobile, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, and into Monroe, Pine Bluff, Tyler, and Greenville here, even going into Hot Springs a little bit too. So, and you know where those states are located on this map, at least I hope so. And again, this will be a wind-driven risk more than likely. They actually have a hatched risk out already on the Storm Prediction Center's site. Not available to weather-wise, but I'm pretty sure they're calling for about 70 to 80, maybe plus mile-an-hour gusts from these storms. So very significant there. Maybe some hail as well. Tornadoes, we were talking about a few possible. Maybe even a strong one along one of the linear segments, or if we can get maybe a semi-discrete bean, a little supercell that forms out in front of the trailing line. That could use up a lot of storm energy and wind shear to really get going. Moving into our high-res NAM model here, we're going to push our timing out in a Saturday. Timing will be right here where my mouse is. 12Z refers to 6 a.m. in the morning. So we can see 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You get the idea. That's what you need to be using for timing in the weather world of things. But we're seeing here really not much bubbling up as we go into Louisiana and Arkansas. We do begin to see our storms begin to fire off here around 6 to 8 p.m. going into Saturday evening. We could see a couple of embed supercells along there with some rotation. Now here we go, a much more zoomed in perspective here. You see your heavy rainfall risk trailing across Arkansas. As we head on through into 6 to 8 p.m., it really looks like this is when things are going to fire off. We're talking about a long line of severe thunderstorms here. No convection out in front of the line at the moment. I do think that these models are underdoing our storm energy. You will see that in just a little bit. But along these lines, we could see 60 to 75 plus mile-an-hour winds. So we gotta really be ready for that. We could see a few spin-up tornadoes as well, maybe a strong one. Especially see some of these beans here, these little hooking segments. That is where you would find those. These trail on through. Memphis potentially getting hammered around 8 to 10 p.m. Going to Clarksdale, Greenwood, Jackson here. Your line moves through Tupelo. Yeah, just take a look at this entire area here. Just really racing off to your east here. Again, the more linear it is, this is great news because the less tornadic activity there will be. But if we see this break up into more of a, a broken line, or we see semi-discrete supercells fire in front of it, that's when we could see risk upgrades, maybe a moderate risk. But we're not expecting that yet because the models are not showing that. So please keep that in mind. So we head through the rest of the night, really charging on through. If there's more storm energy, we will be talking about a potential destructive wind risk across a fairly large area. Moving further north to Kentucky and Tennessee, look at that heavy rain risk, just that fire hose of nonstop moisture across those areas. And then here comes your line. Definitely talking about strong to damaging winds through Nashville, Lewisburg, Tupelo, Huntsville, getting in around 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Saturday night, Sunday morning, basically. And this line continues trucking on through to Nashville, and this will continue moving on through into Gainesboro, Crossville, Knoxville, Sevierville, you get the idea, Altamont, Chattanooga, Fort Payne, even into Atlanta later on. Going, I'd say, in around 2 to 5 a.m. into Sunday morning. But we will more than likely be seeing severe thunderstorm warnings getting issued along the entire line here. It really would not shock me if we see that. So let's take a little more of an in-depth look. So how much storm energy do these storms have available to them? Let's go ahead and take a look here at our timing. As we move into Saturday afternoon, you can see a pretty large swath, I would say, of about 1,500 joules per kilogram of CAPE, otherwise known as convective available potential energy, and that's what I'm referring to when I'm saying storm energy. I just don't want to confuse you all with those terms. You can see it building up quite nicely here as we continue on through into the evening. Your line is going to use all of this up, and again, I am waiting for a potentially large uptrend. Maybe we see our open warm sector maybe expand a lot further off to your east, and we see more of that rich storm energy streaming on up to our north here. This is also what the Storm Prediction Center is looking at as well as a potential. And we start to lose our storm energy due to a lack of daytime heating, but still down here in Louisiana we need to watch out. What's our supercell composite looking like here? Going into Saturday, You can see some elevated parameters, especially where your highest wind shear is in eastern Arkansas and western Mississippi. We're talking about some more elevated parameters here. Definitely going to be more favorable for damaging winds here, tornadoes, and even some hail as a concern. And we start to lose that due to daytime heating. Same song and dance. Your STPs, otherwise known as your significant tornado parameters. This is where you could see an embedded risk for a strong tornado along your line. Up here, it's the same exact areas that I just pointed out before. Alright, and now here's another factor here. This is known as your lapse rates. And you might be thinking, Alex, stop throwing all this crazy terminology at my face. But no, because this parameter basically tells you how much time it'll take for a supercell to mature and possibly produce a tornado. So this is a typical Dixie Alley setup, meaning you're not going to see a whole lot of it. We're seeing values here in between a 6 and a 7. That's a little bit decent. You can see it's a little bit of a smaller area here. What you really want is values above 6.5 to have sustaining supercells that even if they get interrupted, they will be able to kind of hit the restart button, right, and get to rejuvenate themselves alive quite at a fast rate. And you can see a pretty big lack here as we head further into the evening, around 5.5 to 6 across a large area. So if we get any semi-discrete supercells that form down here, it'll take probably about 3 to maybe 4 hours for them to become tornadic. And let me tell you, we do not have all the time in the world with setups like this. So it's important to note, if they form out here, in the area with values between a 6 and a 5 to a 7, they could form within an hour or two. So a lot more favorable here in isolated pockets. Now, of course, that diminishes rapidly, and overnight you are not going to have any more sustaining supercells whatsoever, unless we see an uptrend in storm energy where we might see a couple values above 6.5 overnight. Okay, so one more thing here, and this could be a potential limiting factor. It depends on a lot of different things. So we were looking at yesterday's event, and I very nearly posted a community post about potential for strong to intense long track tornadoes, down in this general vicinity here, and I was going to post it around 2 p.m. and say, well, the peak would be between 4 to 8 p.m. What happened? We didn't see that, right? That is because we had a lack of veering winds with height until the overnight hours. Are we going to see the same exact scenario on Saturday? We could. Now, let's take a look at your NAM model here. Your winds at the surface will roughly be coming out of the south here, as you can see by that arrow. As we go up with height a little bit, so I drew the arrow across the most favorable section of severe weather here. Basically where if a semi-discrete or fully discrete supercell forms, it could take full advantage of the storm energy and lapse rates that it might have. So as we go up in height a little bit here, what are we going to begin to notice? We do start to notice our winds here coming a little more veered out of the south-southwest. Going even higher up, now going into your low levels, coming more out of the southwest now. So you're gonna start to get a depiction here that yes, we are seeing a little bit of veering with height into your mid-levels now, much more out of the southwest. So yeah, take a look at that. You can definitely see how this can create vorticity and cyclonic spin aloft. Heading into your upper levels here, winds roughly out of the same direction. This will likely remain true for your far upper levels as well. Yeah, basically the same thing, but you can tell, right? You do have tilting here, and this is what we need if we want to see a strong tornado risk. Okay, so now we're going to move into part 3 of our video here, detailing the winter storm risk for the upper southeast. I could already hear the cheers, the clapping, and then the groans. A lot of people don't like snow at this time of year because it's almost spring, but we're going to get into detail with it here right now. Before we do that, let's start further north into the Midwest and Ohio Valley, where we could see potentially a bit of a winter storm risk going into Saturday here. We're talking places like Chicago here, going up into northern Illinois, Wisconsin as well, Iowa, and even into Michigan. This will move on through and cause some back end snow. Look at your low pressure system That really begins to intensify here, throwing down a lot of moderate to heavy snow along the northwest quadrant of it. Then after that, you're going to deal with quite a bit of lake effect snow here across northern Indiana, Portage, Chesterton, Michigan City, likely be seeing, a decent amount. We don't really know how much yet. If I were to guess, maybe 1 to 2 inches. That could change fast, though. And now for the European model, one of the tabs got deleted, so I'm a little out of order here. You can see the same thing. This actually shows a pretty decent clipper system. So it starts as a clipper and then turns into a snowstorm, basically. So your clipper energy, and then here you go, some back-end snow. Again, probably between 1 to 4 inches across these areas. It's a little hard to tell. You can see some uncertainties, some gaps, some dry air here, which could get in the way. But if you're looking at an overall timing standpoint, some on and off snow is going to be likely starting tomorrow evening and moving all the way through early Sunday morning. Again, it'll be split into a part 1, part 2 type scenario. And then potentially a lot more moderate to heavy snow across central Ohio and into portions of Michigan, and that continues on. And it seems as if I already have our snowfall amounts pulled up, so yeah, generally between 1 to 4 inches across a large area. European shooting for 3 to 4, going more aggressive, but this is your weaker model run, so generally going to be between that range. See some of your lake effect snow towards the end. Then look at this going across eastern Ohio, here northeastern Ohio, like Cleveland, 7 to 8 inches. Wow. It's talking about a pretty decent, sizable event there, a major winter storm, if you will. Then, of course, I can't take your attention off of Upper Peninsula of Michigan here, 6 inches. So, winter is not over for you all yet. Wait till May and then ask again. Yeah, it lasts for a while up there. Then your GFS. What has happened here? Look at this, talking about 8 to 12 inches of snow. What the? It's way different than the GFS or the European. So we're talking about most of Iowa here and then southern Wisconsin. Take a look here, most of Michigan between 6 to 10 inches as well. Quite intriguing, I must say, and these model discrepancies do happen from time to time. So once again, European, boom, GFS. Yeah, we have a lot to figure out, don't we? Okay, now for the portion of video you all have been waiting for, if you especially have been from Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, and Virginia. We are talking about a risk for a winter storm next week. You can see it cranking across Oklahoma, going into Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. This is going into the 18th and 19th. European model showing a lot of dry air kind of swooping on through, so no snow on this model as of yet. That's about to change though, and you're going to see why. Looks like all your moisture down here is robbing it up further north. And you can see here, boom, there it goes. Once that slug of moisture moves out of the Gulf, we start to see a rejuvenation here across East Tennessee, Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia. Look at that. Heavy snow, heavy wet snow across East Tennessee, potentially going into the morning of the 20th here. So definitely quite interesting. And even into North Carolina could see some heavy snow. Northern North Carolina, I don't want to get carried away, as that could lead to a lot of people being angry at me, right? We don't want to see that. But freezing rain, possible in between as well. Your GFS here, look at that, a lot more juiced up here, and you could definitely tell going into a Wednesday afternoon, some light snow flying here across northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, and across the whole entire state of Tennessee. So this model was one that didn't show snow for this area before and has now flipped and has joined every other model. And this, not a forecast, this is probably an outlier, but it shows snow in northern Louisiana and central Louisiana. Hey, does that not sound familiar? We've seen this song and dance before, except this time this is one model. Getting a little more moderate here across East Tennessee going into Wednesday evening, especially connecting up with this other low pressure system here. Look at that. We're seeing these two areas of energy merging into one here. That's carrying quite a boom across North Carolina. You can see as we continue, boom, major winter storm here across much of your coastal Carolina regions, going deep into South Carolina, North Carolina. We're talking about the upstate and the Midlands getting in on the action here. And this moves on out with a heavy, hefty thumping of heavy wet snow across the Carolina coast, the Outer Banks especially. Your snowfall totals go like this. European model, take a look at that, between 2 to 4 inches across East Tennessee. Not something I could say too often, right? Going into North Carolina and Virginia, around 7 to 9 inches. This may be a little bit overdone. And then look at that, coastal Delaware, 8 to 10 inches. So quite the surprise for a lot of you all there. Indeed, and for the Northeast, I can't leave you all out of that first system. 15 to 20 inches. Wow. Yeah, major winter storm possible for those areas. Once we get all of our details ironed out for System 1, before we can go into System number 2. And your GFS goes like this. What the nonsense? We have up to 2 inches into central Alabama. No, this down here is likely an outlier and is not a forecast at all. But hey, a nice little hit here, 2 to 3 inches across East Tennessee. I kind of sound like a broken record now. Are we seeing consistency here? Or maybe the models are agreeing on the wrong thing. We'll have to wait and see. Look at that here, about 10 to 12 inches across northeastern Oklahoma, southeastern Kansas. Then 4 to 6 across the rest of the area. That also may be an outlier. I didn't see that from any other model. Then bada bing, bada boom across coastal North Carolina. This model showing a lot of snow. Not a forecast, shows about 20 inches for some areas. That would be exceptional. You have not seen that in a very long time. And let me tell you, you folks over there are dying to see this, especially snow lovers. So don't get your hopes up, but don't get too excited now. We're a little far out, and these models tend to go a little crazy. Last couple things here. This is going to be at your EPS blend. Looking at around 2 to 3 inches here for East Tennessee. Portions of northern North Carolina, maybe around 4 inches. And look at that, Virginia. I mean, beautiful. Chef's kiss mean there, around 4 to 5 inches. If you love snow, this could be your event. We'll have to see. And then, of course, across the central U.S., can't forget about you all, 3 to 5 inches as well. Into your GEFS, same song and dance here. 4 to 6 inches for your coastal Carolinas. South Carolina, around 1 to 3 inches, even diving deep as well. This is quite the signal. This actually reminds me of a snowstorm that happened by my area early in January, where we got about 5 inches. We saw a mean similar to this a little further west. Around 2 inches for East Tennessee, especially more as you go into the mountains. Alright, that about does it with today's video. It was a lot of information to pack in there, but you know, got some active weather coming up. Severe weather, winter weather. I love severe weather. I can go in depth all day about it because there's so much to look at, so many parameters, and so much more to learn. It's the type of thing that you could spend 12 hours talking about, and I am not going to do that to you all. 20 minutes is well over enough. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to my little corner of the weather community. Just want to mention real quick, we're almost at 100 subscribers. Thank you all so much for trusting me as one of your many weather sources. I greatly appreciate that. And if you wish, please be sure to leave a comment in the section below, letting me know how well I did. If there's any changes I should make in the future, I am open for suggestions. And don't forget to share this with friends and family on social media. With that said, have a wonderful night, everyone.